Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason, where today we are taking a look at a game that I quite recently played right here on Red River Estuary. Every once in a while I do like to take a game that I play that's either exciting or otherwise has some teachable moments and take a look at it with you guys as a opportunity for some of the newer folks joining not only the Brightworks but also Beyond All Reason. Welcome to both of you, I guess I should say. If you've joined the Beyond All Reason community and you haven't joined the Brightworks community, feel free to do so by joining the Discord and subscribing down below in the comment section where you can find all those good links. Our red team leader already walking off of the camera right here. There he is. Or she, I'm not entirely sure, but it's a red commander that's playing Cortex here that goes by the name... Wow. Apparently that's what we're going to do. That goes by the name of Admos. Admos clocking in at 37 open skill and going to be showing us what they've got here is a red Canadian Cortex commander on the top left-hand side of Red River Estuary, otherwise known as it's a map with an interesting history, a definite... Anyway, moving on here. The blue commander is going to be none other than Orlani Zykas, who is also another foul name, apparently. I've been told the translation is quite a bit rude. But no problem, because YouTube doesn't really care about any swear words as long as they're in a foreign language, so I think we're good for today. Orlani Zykas gonna be showing us what they've got here is a blue Cortex commander going into some of those vehicles. Now, the commander who you may have already noticed is playing in the water over here is the yellow commander. It's none other than myself. And by the way, as a quick note, in case you want to join on the live streams, which are usually Saturday 12 to 4, actually, if you're watching this the day this comes out, which will be Saturday, there will not be a live stream. We have some family moving in. We might do something this Sunday. Let me see. That would be 4/6. Sunday 4/6, the 6th of April. We will be doing something. Anyways, it's myself, TNT the Brightworks. You're more than welcome to add me in-game as well if you'd like to join in on those lobbies extra quickly. You can do that by just joining on my profile right there. More than happy to have more and more friends joining every single day, a part of the Brightworks community. Gonna be playing in the water right here. I felt like playing a little bit of a Navy game as an Armada commander, which is always fun. Now, right off the bat here, I didn't know this when I was playing this game, but there is a single commander in the water. Okay, Tempash has decided to go onto land and go for hovercraft. Now, I played this game and then I let it cool off for a minute, so I don't remember every single little detail, but I do remember this. An early submarine came across, and this is always a scary moment, right? Because I don't have anti-submarine tech. I mean, I can see it with these seekers here. Skaters, rather, pardon me. However, I can't actually do anything about it, so you can see me clicking this skater around to just make sure that it avoids all those torpedoes. I've got the radar tower up, so I know this thing is going to be moving. The only option I have is to intercept it with the commander, so I'm just hoping and praying right now that I don't have to worry about it. A little bit of a counterattack, though, forces the attention back here from Maldian, and I managed to pull off the ever-elusive capture command. Indeed, managing to pull the attention of the green commander back long enough that I actually can move up on this submarine and hit a capture command means that the submarine becomes mine, and now its flag shall bear the TNT Brightworks name, and now suddenly I have an offensive tool that I can send back at my enemy. This is really powerful. If you can capture enemy units early on, especially in Navy, but even in regular gameplay, super valuable tool, because obviously 440 metal right here is half the early game economy for Maladian, who is now joined in the water by a couple of these Seeker, the fast attack hovercraft from the Powder Blue Commander. Powder Blue Commander, Tempash. Northern side going to be dominated by Twitterbird, who has gone into a water lab and is now pumping out those boats. Going to be building out of that shipyard a whole bunch of frigates and destroyers here to start harassing Admos. Admos a little bit slower on the draw, went for a slightly greedier build here, going for the build on land. Obviously no metal extractors to contest in here, so it's really a positional advantage. Doesn't actually garner you all too much here, in the sense that there's like metal to be claimed out on the field here. So Twitterbird is making a big investment just to be able to position on the coastline. Now, for what it's worth, at least one of these metal extractors, if not maybe all three of these metal extractors, might be assailable from the water. Beautiful little play right here, by the way, from Diatonic. The orange commander manages to sneak one of these around the map and does get a good bit of value of it. My commander here, the maroon commander, is going to chase down this frigate. Nicely done. Manages to blast this frigate to smithereens using the superior firepower of the Riptide Assault frigate here from the Cortex Laboratory, meaning that I don't have to go clean up that mess. And obviously, pretty grateful for that, yeah. Spare me the APM, just handle it yourself. More frigates coming across the map right here, but you can see the submarine is now making its way downtown. Sailing fast, Mex's pass, and it's homebound. I've turned off, or I've put it on hold fire so that it doesn't accidentally reveal itself, but I believe, yeah, I targeted down a couple of these. So you can always hold spacebar to put a Q at the front in order to shoot something, and then it will resume its Q. So there you go. You can see me trying to move this around a little bit further. Frigates intercepting frigates. And it's always important that you manage to catch these, because one little leak can tear apart your early game economy, especially when it really only consists of a couple of those tidal generators. Eventually, frigates do manage to bring that down. The defense is secured, and now the red team is, or the red player and the orange are both going to be vying for control over this northern side. Now, one thing that I will say is that hovercrafts are a rare start, and the reason for that is that they're quite bad. All things considered, hovercraft are quite bad, and it's one of those unspoken rules about Red River Estuary. Whoa, Solvo going into hovercraft as well here. It's one of those weird unspoken things about Red River Estuary is that actually this water is more than deep enough for even T2 boats to get into. And that's kind of, I mean, I feel like almost a little bit of an oversight. Like, I feel like it shouldn't be deep enough for boats, at least not in every section, because basically boats are uncontested. They're I would say about 3 times as powerful as anything else in the game. Like, maybe twice as powerful as vehicles and 3 times as powerful as bots, and well, aircraft don't really compare, but big old trade on this northern side, by the way. Blue commander manages to trade out for the orange, but with a ton of missile trucks still up and standing, it's going to be a blue advantage, a gigantic blue advantage, as now thousands of metal can be dumped into economy. As you can see, indeed, we're going to build a metal storage, actually unable to spend all the metal at the moment, going to be scaling that economy quite nicely on the northern side. Twitterbird going to move in to capture these metal extractors and hopefully build a radar right there. Meanwhile, Shuriken trying to paralyze whatever they can. Nicely done right there. Tank commander manages to, or rather purple commander manages to, who is that? Yarlodin, the Lavender commander, manages to paralyze a whole bunch of those units and do a bunch of work. We've got a Shuriken on Shuriken battle right here. Boy, what a violent battle this is indeed. Snoop now taking some damage right here. Snoop Dio double G getting hurt by those plasma cannons. They actually can hit commanders in the water for the most part, but there we go. The commander has finally dived deep enough that that frigate can't shoot it. I would bet that this can actually. This frigate, if it dumbfires right here, yeah, it can actually hit that commander still, so nicely done. Snoop in a little bit of trouble. Boom! Oh, boom goes the purple commander. There we go. Yeah, the purple commander does go down, and now suddenly we have these Shuriken in the air trying to stop all this. Shuriken are kind of a band-aid, though. You need forces in order to deal with all of this. Frigates and destroyers is going to be the name of the game, but you can see what that early advantage really buys you. That one submarine going down, the mechs is being sniped. It buys you a gigantic amount of pressure on the front line. As you can see, I already have 2 frigates and a destroyer out and running, whereas we've just got a destroyer up and running right now for the green commander, Meladian. Is it Meladian? Like Tips Fedora Melady? Or is it Meladian? Like some sort of element? I'm not entirely sure. Unclaimed mechs right here is a little bit sloppy. Love that we're going for these tidal generators, though. So one of the interesting things about hovercraft, I mean, is obviously that they can transfer between the land and the sea. It means that you can hit some really nice plays. This is also great. One of the things that Navy can also do is pressure the land, and this is exactly where that comes in handy. Green commander does go down. The Seafoam green commander falls, and now the boats are back into the action. They don't really have to move too far to be very, very useful against the land enemies, and you can see just how dangerous they were. Taking basically no damage, these frigates and destroyers are going to be more than happy to move forward, and now there's only 2 destroyers out right here for the green commander. When in doubt, spamming frigates is never a bad idea. Using those frigates to, well, essentially using those frigates as body blockers for the destroyers to actually fire away and do huge bursts of damage. As you can see, those destroyers do, well, quite a large burst of damage. The trick here is getting 2 armies to work together with each other, and so you can see the Maroon Commander commanding his army backwards right here, and I'm trying to repair with my commander. Repair micro in the Navy is extremely important. With the damage from a projectile doing only, you know, maybe 8% or more, 8% or less, rather, the commander being able to repair several percent per second. Yeah, it's a no-brainer to keep that commander on the front just to massage everybody back up to full health, and you can see what a difference it makes. Suddenly, we've got these full health units that are going to be able to take 3, 4, 5 extra hits, whereas the other units are not. Not to mention, anti-air is baked right into the composition here of mostly skaters and destroyers, means that we're going to be able to clear out those shurikens quite nicely here. Meanwhile, it's going to be bombers right here for the Lavender commander. Has managed to go into a couple of those bombers and send them across the way. Shurikens were produced right here for the defense, but it leaves our brown commander without any fighters in the air. Means that these bombers have the opportunity to do something very funny. Well, okay. Fighter will be produced. Bombers will avoid the air player and instead target the northern orange commander, who's going to be the recipient of quite a few of those whirlwind bomber heavy impulse or medium impulse bombs. Fighters in the air eventually shooting these down, but taking a little while. Fighters, I mean, it takes quite a few shots in order to shoot those bombers down. They're quite tanky, at least by T1 aircraft standards. But they eventually go down. Was that the bombing run that the Seafoam, or pardon me, the Lavender Commander was really hoping for? I don't think so, but it's definitely better than nothing. As you can see, the Red Commander now going for T2, and that does scout, at the very least, that there's a T2 transition well underway. Green Lab has fallen, though, and I mean, obviously, without the resource production, this is a Green Commander going up against 2 times the economies, whereas the Blue Commander has not really been in the water hardly at all, has sent some skaters forward, but they get blasted by the frigates quite easily, and now you can see these boats are just devastating to the land right here. Here's a couple of those hover tanks trying to get involved, and you can see, again, the plasma fire is just unrelenting. It's so difficult for these hovercraft to really deal with. They're too slow to necessarily outmaneuver the plasma fire, and they don't do enough damage to really contend in a face-to-face punch-out. Meanwhile, a nice little run by right here from the Green Commander, making good use of those forces right here. The reinforcements are going to be in place to receive all this, and the unit's sort of stalling out at the moment. Whoa. E-Converter barely survives. Never mind it. E-Converter does pop. Destroyer, though, manages to take down one of those, and the shurikens in place right here will be able to paralyze the rest of this. Using the conturrets to just eat up this one singular dolphin means that this is going to be fairly easy to push through. And as predicted, you can see the yellow boats are now going to be able to move forward. I guess predicted isn't the right move. I did play this game after all. Twitterbird now moved very far forward here. Oh, D-gun. Massive D-gun right there, cleaving apart these units right now. The Pink Commander loses thousands of metal worth of T1 tanks. Oh, no. One missed opportunity, and suddenly all of those tanks go down right there. There were Januses, there were Whistlers, and there were Stouts, medium tanks. All of which fall as Twitterbird continues marching forward right now. Cash Mix X43 going to be sitting up an LLT here to try and thwart that commander. Ultimately, you could probably just win this in a duel. That's 36% HP, so I believe you could fight this in a head-to-head laser battle, and it wouldn't be the end of the world here. Twitterbird going on an absolute rampage. Blue Force is moving in as well. The Incisors moving in now, and the Red Commander getting that T2 production up and online. But there we go. D-Gun connects with the laboratory, and suddenly Twitterbird is now in a great position. D-Gun down 2 laboratories actually right there. And now, yeah, neither Wrath of Zeus or Cashmas X43 gonna sacrifice their commanders here. Eventually, medium tanks in position to deal with this. Down goes the Green Commander, but not before blowing up probably about as much metal as possible with that commander. Very, very nicely done. Meanwhile, a couple of these Incisors continuing their rampage across the map right here. We do have some fighters moving in. The anti-air is quite nice from these lashers, shooting down the defensive fighters. Helping out the offensive fighters quite a lot here, actually. Meanwhile, the Navy is on a rampage. Teammate has decided to go for T2. We'll start producing those T2 boats right here off of a nicely scaled energy economy. I have claimed basically all the metal extractors forward, so going for E-scaling makes a lot of sense. And nicely done with the Res Sub 2, reclaiming as much of that metal as possible. But here we go. The other hovercraft lab has been spotted. The southern side is now completely without pressure, meaning that the Pink Commander is completely free to go ahead and tech up, and you can see indeed going for some of those T2 metal extractors, some of that T2 economy right here as the boats continue pressing forward. Torpedo launcher is going to be firing away right here, but there's so many destroyers and so many frigates that it really doesn't matter. They don't have enough time to get the value that they normally would. Now the laboratories, metal extractors, all the rest of it is in tons of trouble. Yeah, as the Seafoam Green Commander is now knocked basically out of this game. Down to a single constructor right here. Single constructor to their name. Flummoxed. Forced to rebuild here. I like this little hovercraft run by, though. We did end up sending a couple of those hover tanks past, and are going to start trying to get real aggressive with them. We do have a Buccaneer on its way out, though. $1,000 for every one of those. Not bad. Meanwhile, the Tsar tank pushed forward right here, using that massive main cannon to blow away anything in its path, firing into the build power right here of the orange facility, trying to get whatever value possible. Love the AA truck included in this as well. Sheldon, the Sheldon, they shill out. The Sheldon here bringing down that Tsar tank before it really can kill the base all too well. There's still a little bit of build power, so rebuilding won't be the end of the world, but these banishers are so punishing. So difficult to deal with. Every single time that one of these fires, they're going to get some serious value. Yeah, Sheldon falling, and even the Shuriken actually struggling here. Yeah. Banisher's technically a weird kind of anti-air, so they, despite their struggles, they do work quite nicely here. Meanwhile, sniping these land bases, making sure to take down all of these facilities, as many as possible, to relieve as much pressure as possible. This is where reading the map becomes super, super important. As you can see, the difference that it makes to relieve this pressure means that the tech can continue to scale right here. It means that my teammates can continue to go upwards. Essentially trying not to leave them hanging. Give them as many opportunities to succeed as possible, even if it costs me my own units, and indeed it will. All the destroyers going down here from the green boats being produced out of this early T1 laboratory here from the Green Commander. Sonar planes in the air, though, looking for a scout, trying to find anything and everything available here. Fighters up in the air as well. As you can see, I've made a seaplane transition. So broadly speaking, in the broadest of terms, there's sort of two options when you go for Navy and once you've won Navy. On one hand, the first option is to go into those amphibious vehicles. You can transition into the amphibious complex and start producing those, or you can transition into the air lab right here, like you can see right now. Look at this guy just geeking out right now. Struggling quite immensely, as we can see the blue commander also pushing forward, trying to find some value here. Shuriken, yeah, trying their best. Those salamanders are very, very tough to stun. Eventually overwhelmed here, and the sumo will be able to clean it up. Hey, nice defense right there. Oftentimes, Shuriken will not be able to keep that sort of thing working properly, just because it takes so many of them to paralyze those. But in this particular context, it seems to have worked quite nicely here. And again, these AA trucks are so nice. Keeping those Shuriken back is so important. Loads of metal extractors down, though. Saber gunships firing their little laser beam, always very, very nice. Capable of quite a lot, the Saber gunships. They're actually one of those units that seems to always have a very easy time finding value. They do a decent amount of damage for a relatively low cost. I believe they're only 210 metal is really not much at all. And you can say they do enough damage that they can be really threatening to most things. And of course you can build them in numbers too. With a nice surround as well, they can be very, very dangerous. Seaplane fighters. Swarmers headed in. Oh no, these are Cyclone, pardon me. I thought they were called, or no, they're called like Swarmer aircraft, right? Yeah, Seaplane Swarmer. They're pretty funny for that respect. They're sort of a weird sort of aircraft. They're very expensive, so at 90 metal a pop, they're definitely not cheap. They're very powerful though. They can oftentimes achieve quite a lot on their own, especially going up against T1. Against T2, they're relatively good, but against T1, they really shine. Gunships, by the way, firing away at this commander, you can see. Doing a great job of whittling them down about 3% per blast. 2 to 3% per blast, and boom goes Tempash as the Saber managed to take him down. Now one facility left and the gunships are headed in. So, as you can see, the option that I've gone for is those seaplane gunships, indeed. This map is gigantic, and getting anywhere on this map with any amount of urgency essentially necessitates that you get into the air. You start playing that air game. Heavy tanks rolling forward on the northern side. As you can see, that blue commander has decided to go for some of those good old-fashioned Cortex T2 vehicles, pumping out a fusion reactor, some bizarrely placed solar panels here. I guess trying to spread everything out to be very resistant to bombing, which is admirable. This is why I love those seaplane gunships so much, though. If you control enough of the airspace that you can use these gunships, they're always worthwhile to use. So efficient at tearing down these bases right here. Now, looking at this right now, I'm judging my own gameplay, and I can tell you right now, I could definitely be a lot more aggressive with these gunships. At this time being, the only other person with an air lab right here is the Green Commander, and barely starting to pump out those fighters. Yarladin, the Lavender Commander, is the only one left with an air lab, and only a couple of fighters at that, meaning that the fighters could easily swarm this and the air lab would be in trouble. But obviously operating with very incomplete information right here. No idea how many numbers are actually available for the Lavender and Green Commanders, so it's very difficult to make that judgment call, right? One of those things that's very difficult to do in Beyond Horizon is read your opponent, read their status. Looks like my scout plane has been discovered. The lone scout plane sitting in the backline here finally gets blasted apart. Sheldon and Salamanders, heavy tanks, and even Banishers firing away right here at the red facility. And boom goes the red laboratory. Down but not out. The blue commander has blown up most of the production here, but there is still a band of constructors, a Twitcher, a T2, and a whole bunch of T1s going to be trying to rebuild right here for the red commander. I love to see it. Sticking in the game and trying to be a thorn in the side of the blue team. Because, of course, the blue team has lost all of their southern production. So you can see the way that this battle is shaped out, where now the southern side is won, so forces are being routed up to stem the flow of blue units, meaning that everything over here from the blue commander is ultimately going to die. It's essentially at its end. There's no way for it to get out. The only way it's going to be extracted here is by a nice, cleverly used green res plane that is now reclaiming a whole bunch, or reclaim plane rather, a construction plane. That's what they're called. It's going to be reclaiming a whole bunch of the metal from this line. I love to see that, actually. I mean, that's great, obviously. Reclaiming whatever you can and making the most out of its metal is always going to be very, very useful. Pink Commander pushing forward as well. Those bulwarks are very difficult to break, though. Yeah, I think we might need more power than this to break that bulwark. The Buccaneer trying its very best, and quite efficient, I will say, but obviously, yeah, that bulwark is going to make very short work of these hounds here. Its Tachyon Beam, Heavy Laser, and Light Laser all work in tandem to essentially rip apart any of those T2 units that might be built on that side of the map. But you can see, this is the other important part. Always keep expanding. I want to point out that I practice what I preach here. These metal extractors are so valuable here, now contributing an extra 8 metal per second into my economy and continuing to expand in this direction as well. Grabbing those metal extractors, it really doesn't take long for them to pay themselves off. And so you can see just how useful it is to go into that sort of thing. Bombers now coming out, and you can see trying to use these bombers to somewhat soften up the group over here. We do have quite a lot of anti-air, so it's a little bit scary going in that direction. But at the end of the day, we have to save the teammates, right? These are what's keeping our backline safe, so making sure that these guys stay alive is super, super important. No scouting right here on these bombers. Including an air scout would have been a wise decision, but I didn't do it. And so my bombing run missed basically the entire target. There you can see the bombs finally falling on top of those units. The Banisher goes down and the Fiends are scuffed up quite nicely. And it means that that push is going to be shut down ever so slightly. At least, at the very least, a little bit easier to shut down, to kill. Metal extractors coming up right here. Anti-air boats have been produced. This was another useful thing to go for. If you find yourself in a position where you know that the enemy has a bunch of anti-air, but you don't necessarily know where, building a couple of those anti-air boats and just utilizing them to shut things down. Oftentimes a good idea. Bombers here to pop the wind turbines, but there is anti-air in mass right here. A SAM turret as well as some other T1 anti-air, Manticore even. Utilizing this bomber is essentially a scouting plane, trying to guess where the build power will be. Managed to middle it right between where all the build power wasn't. That's what the blue commander gets for spreading out that build power, is that it was really, really difficult to snipe right there. So that's, you know, one explanation of why it's such a nice advantage to do something like that. I think I remember, yeah, reclaiming this metal is super important as well. Eating up as much metal as possible to continue the expansion, producing out of this seaplane laboratory. Now, one thing obviously is going for T2. You can see trying to get T2 up and running is always a really, really important task. Getting this T2 running is basically going to quadruple the economy here from the Navy, so making sure that those T2 mexes get upgraded in a pretty timely manner is obviously super, super important. Salamander's rolling in, and there's really not a lot to defend over here, actually. Cashmas is kind of in a bad position. There are Mauser out now. There's some bull tanks rolling out as well. Looks like those must have been produced and handed over here. Yeah, the Pink Commander producing those bulls and just handing them over to Cashmas, who's going to try and save the base right here, but definitely in a tricky spot. Don't get me wrong, Salamanders are quite good, but the bulls are definitely a lot better. You can see them brutalizing those Salamanders quite easily here. Salamanders finding value of those. Clumped together wind turbines, like a fuse, will go up in the night. Boom, 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 boom. They all go down. The new Banishers looking quite mighty. I do love to see it. Red Commander trying to rebuild over here is also cool. The Twin Guards slowly but surely whittling down this sumo. Very nicely done. Gunships now causing all kinds of havoc on this northern side. Wasp gunships are very brutal. Super easy to use. They're kind of a multi-tool. They're very useful in a lot of different contexts. There's no wrong way to use a Wasp gunship. They just fire and they do a bunch of damage and a decent AoE. They're really, really good in that respect. A good showcase of how well these swarmers actually trade out against T2. Pretty badly. Yeah, the swarmers are kind of they're kind of excellent against T1 and not phenomenal against T2. Obviously way superior numbers right here for the Lavender Commander, but yeah, definitely quite good. Hiding the gunships underwater is usually the best use case scenario. Making sure that you put those away so that they can't be sniped is a pretty useful way of spending that metal. There you go. You can see those T2 mechs is coming up and online here now, though. And the Bulls are now counterattacking here, continuing to apply pressure. Those Banisher missiles hurt quite a lot. We do need to do something about those. Trying to send the Grunts forward to waste those missiles is quite cool. And it works pretty good, actually, most of the time. Every once in a while, they will connect with something a little more valuable, and that's when it starts to hurt. Love this from the Red Commander, though. You can see going for those radar jammers here to make sure that it's all cloaked, so it's not easily determined that this is, yeah, some sort of... There's a rebuilding base over here, instead just focusing on slowly but surely grabbing more of those expansions and staying alive as much as possible. Loads of reclaim available right here. Time for the big push. Cash mix 43. Headed into the middle of this composition. Oh, nice D-gun. Yeah, nice D-gun. Boom goes the Brown Commander, though. Those Salamanders do manage to blast it apart before really the Commander manages to get, I think, its value. Looks like we have one of these Mauser firing away here as well. Man, those Banishers are good. Just a couple of those Banishers, they laid out so much suppressive fire. Banishers, I think I'm comfortable comparing them to Starlights at this point. That's sort of the role that I feel like they fill. Kind of very similar here. D-guns right here. I remember this being a clencher of a moment right here, watching these Grunts get D-gunned apart. But eventually they will come down. Bombers here to save the day as well. One of the nice things about these Tsunami Bombers is they're actually pretty good against T1. Faster moving units at the very least. They're definitely very good at dealing with those. One of those weird air micro tips is that if you're ever being chased and their fighters are chasing your bombers, your fighters will take a fabulous trade because their fighters will waste their shots on your bombers. I mean, they'll kill your bombers, sure, but your fighters will kill all of their air. And suddenly you can turn what's a pretty bad situation in the air into a really relatively good one. Capital ship out and about, though, and now going to start firing away right here. Solvo in a bit of a tricky position. That commander being targeted by the long-range plasma cannons. You can see the beamer turrets being set up here to defend. Defensive beamer turrets, always quite nice. Construction efforts have expanded, and now you can see tons and tons of swarmers being sent around here. More Quakers and even some gunslingers being set up. Quite nice. Boop, boop. Yep, T2 units run right... Wow, what a hybrid. T2 units run right over, indeed, as the Round Commander Cash Mix X43 does say. Yeah, they definitely will just plow right through that. And they'll actually take a little bit of damage, too, so it can be a bit annoying. Again, the Swarmers are coming out to play, though. And I mean, those gunships are taking hits, but obviously the Swarmers are trading out quite nicely. It always impresses me how fabulously those Swarmers really trade. They can do quite a lot of work. Tsunami's coming in to deploy their payload. They don't drop many bombs, but they drop quite a few. Or rather, they don't drop many, but they drop some very high-powered ones. Taking out that T2 laboratory. I was very disappointed to see another T2. Saw that and instantly realized that that was not going to completely knock out the production right here for Jarladen, but obviously taking out all that, what is it called? All of those build turrets is quite useful here. Now here's the unit of the game. This is the one that I wanted to highlight. This is the unit that I think deserves a little bit of attention. The Turtle. Now, for the longest time, the Turtle has not been an impressive unit. Not even at all. However, I felt like it was time to explore what they're actually capable of, and it just so happens to turn out that the Turtle might be good? Question mark? It certainly felt pretty good at this point. Using them to fire away into the distance, they were doing quite a good amount of damage. They were doing quite a good AoE effect as well, managing to blast apart those Grunts very nicely. Taking down that T2 Con is obviously quite useful as well, making sure that that doesn't have the opportunity to expand those T2 defenses forward anymore. And at this point, after that first engagement, I was pretty thrilled. I think the turtles had proven their worth, and they were ready to continue onward. Pardon the interruption. Had somebody come in asking about a mojito. Had to follow up on that request. Anyways, getting back into the game. Only a second for you. It was actually a couple minutes for me. Where were we? What were we talking about? A capital ship here firing away at the base, and obviously one shield is nice, but it's not going to be the end-all be-all to stop that capital ship. We do have a second one. Do we have a second one? Oh no, it's that anti-air field. Is actually, it confused me for a second there. Yeah, so one shield is not going to be enough to stop this capital ship, but obviously that takes quite a lot of time. So I actually do like this ship using its resources a little bit differently here, firing away at the naval units, excuse me, that have been sent down from the northern side. Oh, and I remember what we were talking about. The might of the turtle. Yeah, look at these bad boys go. Quite a lot of HP. Relatively fast. Decent amount of AoE, I believe. Yeah, it's not, I mean, it's not gigantic by any means, but it's definitely good enough for when units clump up. Like, for instance, exactly this situation. And there we go. You can see them easily piercing through all those. And, of course, mounted on their rears, a little anti-air gun. It pops out of their little rear panel, and suddenly they can fire up at those planes. Now, that was something I had completely forgotten about. It. This whole time I was thinking, okay, well, I can also build some anti-air out of this. Maybe I'll go for some AA bots or maybe even some Manticore, that sort of thing. No, it turns out they are their own anti-air. And it's not bad either. I mean, look how much damage they do to those gunships. It's not a lot. It's a couple percent per rocket, but they fire fairly quickly. And obviously, they're very tanky, so these gunships can't really kill them, not super easily anyways. Some reinforcing bats right here swarming in from the Maroon Commander, and it does mean that the turtles are able to overwhelm this base completely. I really had no idea that the turtles were this good. They had always seemed kind of like an, you know, maybe B or C tier unit, kind of like one of those units that you can reach for if you really need to. Not the kind of unit that's great for this kind of punching, but it turns out, as it happens to turn out, the turtle is actually goated. So there we go, the Lavender base now reduced to slag. Slag and ruin. As you can see, I sent some some res bots in already to eat up all these wreckages, of course. We even have a Shiva come out, which was cool to see. I mean, a comparison against T3 is kind of the best comparison there is for these T2 units. And as you can see, they do a decent amount of damage here. It's like, what, 4% per blast, something like that? A little bit more with that flanking bonus, closer to 6%, 6 or 7% per blast. It means that they really do a very nice amount of damage. And there they go, sweeping their way up from the southern side. Those resbots eating up tons and tons of wreckage right here as well, converting all that metal back into usable resource to spend on more of those units come out of the laboratory. You can see the build power has increased over here for these as the Bloom army has continued to increase as well. But most interestingly, it's a lot of salamanders still. We've still got a lot of salamanders and a lot of grunts. I mean, the grunts are great for spamming forward, of course, but ideally you want to have those pushing ahead of your, well, for instance, your rocket forces. Not necessarily... Ooh, Aphis goes up, by the way. Forgot that. I was the one that killed it, and I forgot about it. Saw the explosion on the minimap, but the blue Aphis does get destroyed. Shiva trying to defend against all this, but obviously Shiva are very expensive. 1,550 metal per Shiva versus the turtle's meager 750 metal. So, you know, basically 2 turtles to every 1 Shiva. I would say the Shiva is, generally speaking, going to be a lot more useful. Its impulse is quite powerful, but obviously the flanking bonus right there from these tanks can be very dangerous. I think shutting down the air forces is so useful here, too. I mean, you can see those T1 fighters going down. Suddenly, there's literally no air force available right here for the blue team. Fighters have been built right here. The trigger has been pulled as the Banishers have moved forward, realizing that the Aphis going down means that suddenly they need to move forward and find some value here, but they just didn't have the support they needed to punch through all this. The blue team starts to tap out one by one by one, and eventually the sweeping forces of the red managed to move in. What a beautiful little defense over here from the red commander. Managed to hold his own, managed to get those twin guards up, and we even had a Scorpion turret up and running as well. Welders managed to pierce the aggression right here, defend against the piercing aggression, I should say. And suddenly the pink commander is on a counterattack. The blue commander has very little economy now, with more and more of these Aphises going down. The second one dies there as well. And the cyan base is in trouble. Oh, I was gonna bomb, cries out the red commander. Sad that the bombing run was nigh. Salvo moving the commander in, but decides to throw in the towel. GG is called as we wrap up this game up beyond all reason. I apologize for my lack of focus in the later section there. Definitely thinking about that mojito. I'm gonna go enjoy it. I hope you guys enjoy your weekend, and I sure hope you enjoyed this cast. I will see you in the very next cast of Beyond Our Reason. If I don't, I hope to see you around the Discord or maybe even in game. Peace out, everybody, and have a lovely one.